Welcome to Clinical Perspectives, the podcast where we explore the real challenges, insights, and decisions that are shaping the medical device industry. I'm Stephanie Stover, and each episode I speak with the leaders, innovators, and experts across medtech to uncover what actually drives product success, regulatory strategy, and commercial growth. If you work in medical devices, healthcare technology, or life sciences, this is the show for you. Today I'm joined by Josh Seyler, president at Row Club. Joshua, nice to have you on the show.
Well, great to see you, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So yeah, tell me about the origin story of Row Club. What was the light bulb moment in creating it?
Yeah, so our founders of Row Club had 50 imaging centers across Europe.
Hmm.
And right about 2020 is when they really started to feel the shortage of staffing for their imaging centers. When they started looking for solutions for that, traditional methods of staffing and workforce just wasn't working. Clearly a different environment they're living in. So they sought out remote strategies to help solve and bridge that gap. In doing so, they realized because of the amount of imaging centers and the infrastructure that they were dealing with, that they'd have to build it themselves. So they brought some IT folks on board out of Germany and built it from the ground up and realized by 2023, 24, this is a global problem. And we're going to bring this to everybody. So they sold their imaging centers, went all in on Row Club. And really, it is to catch up with the times and enable a true lightweight IT solution to be able to scale with companies. And I think that's the difference when we look at building something just within a singular hospital versus sprawling organizations like we see in healthcare today, that we need broader access, easier access. And at the end of the day, everyone needs lower cost.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think is causing the shortage in MRI and CT technologists?
Well, I think the data is very clear from the ASRT and some customer surveys in 2025. And we saw a great exodus of staff in 2020 to 21 timeframe. So currently, we're at about a 18% shortage of MRI techs and a 19% shortage of CT techs. Now, people migrate, they move from modalities. So sometimes you'll see people leave CT and go to MRI and therefore opening up CT. But there's largely a shortage that isn't helping the fact that year over year, we have a 4% growth of need for more MRI exams and CT exams. So we're seeing this great divide between need for exams and not enough staff. And we're never going to bridge that gap
Right. So
in a short period of time.
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
So what happens to patient care when those imaging centers can't staff?
There's a snowball effect. First of all, patients obviously lack access now. They're having to be steered, wait longer for exams, push off their surgeries. You can imagine if maybe you suspect you might have cancer and now you have to wait
Well,
3 to 4 weeks for an MRI. It just seems outlandish in America. Another thing too is with the shortage, what it also caused is a lack of expertise. So now we see a lot of places where they're just not offering cardiac exams, whether in CT or MRI. They're not offering prostate and breast screenings because they just don't have the staff that have the education and skills to do those exams. They can bring people on and train them how to do brains and spines and knees and shoulders, but some of those more complex exams are the ones that just aren't being offered.
right. So how does Row Club work exactly?
We work with hospitals and imaging centers to integrate our platform into their current workforce and provide them with a hybrid workforce solution. So if we think about traditional staffing approaches in the market today, it is we will try to give bonuses, we'll try to raise hourly wages to attract people. We try to do all these clever things. But what happens is the tech they start working, and someone right down the street says, I'll give you $5 more an hour, and I guarantee that person will move. So
Yeah.
they don't have retainment strategies at all. So
Hmm.
what we offer is something that really keeps their staff there. Because remotely, if you are able to leverage your staff, whether they are at location A, B, or C, maybe the person at location C knows how to do a liver that A doesn't, and they can help them out. So you can strengthen the quality and the abilities of your entire team through mutual support. You also can give a hybrid workforce potential for people to work toward. And techs always are looking for, how can I advance? And we've never really given great advancement options for techs. It's okay, you do x-ray, you get to maybe get to do CAT scan, maybe you get to go to MRI, but that's about it. You don't really have a pathway. But imagine if you could work toward maybe 1 day a week working from your house, two
Mm.
days a week working from your house. Or you can imagine a world where, this is a real world example with one of our customers, where their favorite tech, if you will, at one of their sites got pregnant and communicated to them that, I'm going to take a few years off to raise my child, stay at home. And they said, well, if we get remote, will you scan from your house and stay with us? And she said, absolutely. And she's still with them today. And it enables her to have this beautiful work life balance and still
Oh,
retain that
amazing.
employee.
That's fantastic. I
Mm.
love that. Last time we spoke, you talked about AI mapping the patient and automatically setting up scans.
Uh-huh.
How close are we to fully autonomous imaging workflows?
I think we're on the verge of a 2-year window because of how fast I
Really?
see AI moving. And now obviously we need to start to adopt those and replace equipment. The good news here is the average age of MRI equipment is about 14 years or so, and the replacement is about 15 to 16 years. So we have a lot of machines on the market in the USA that need to be replaced.
Mm.
And if you actually look at what people are developing today regarding AI, there's two areas where AI is really being leveraged, because there's a couple different key components within AI, or in radiology for AI. First, it's results. How is AI helping with results? Analyzing images, workflows. How do we automate some of the data we're getting? And then the other is, how is AI actually choosing the workflows and choosing what AI engines we use? Because there's all these companies that have some sort of an AI, but they're very siloed and they don't bring great value to a company. So what you are seeing today is the IHE, for example, is working on standardized language. So these outputs that AI is doing is standardized, so they
Hmm.
can easily be integrated into a network. Today you have variable DICOMs and all these different formats trying to be merged together, and it's just not enabling you to get the full value out of AI. So that's
Yep.
first, right? We have to look at those two work streams and how AI is impacting them. But what we're already seeing today is on the equipment manufacturer side. They know two things are driving the market. Number one is reimbursements. When the government looks at reimbursements, they see technology in the marketplace, and they see that MRI scanners, new technology today, could essentially do 15-minute exams, even 10-minute exams in many cases. So they're saying, why would we give you the same reimbursements that used to take 40 minutes? With new technology, it only takes 15 minutes. So it's very logical to start to reduce reimbursements because of technology. But
Mm.
you have old equipment and now you're struggling because you don't have some of those newer technologies to help you go that fast. So it's a natural progression pushing the industry to replace equipment sooner. It's better for patients, better throughput, better use of equipment. They're automating AI by saying, bring the patient in, lay him on the table. There's a camera on the ceiling that is watching the patient, and it identifies they're getting a shoulder done. It centers, automatically put them on the table. That person that is putting them on the table takes one click and they're in the bore. Then the machine starts scanning, and we can teach it via machine learning, AI, to auto set up your exam for you. So no longer do you have to click, 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 and start to rotate slices and drag
Mm.
slices. It makes sure that the anatomical region is covered, the correct angles. And then also some AI can start to edit the software so that it optimizes the scan time so that the patient can get the shortest but best exam possible. And then if you look at the next step is, we're acquiring data out of the patient. We're using AI to make that data sharper, cleaner, so that we can shorten the exams but also provide even better quality. So we're seeing just that OEM piece, the original equipment manufacturers develop those key pieces just so it's, instead of taking 10 minutes to get a patient on the table, now it takes 2 to 3 minutes. And then the AI on the image side, because the images are cleaner and sharper and less noise, things like that, that also reduces scan times. And then finally, I think the next step is, we're looking at radiologists a lot, right?
Yep.
Radiologists are as much of a shortage. It's a high cost area. How do we develop software that looks at the images, develops a very clear template for the radiologist to look at, shows them, like agentic AI is a great example of this. If If the machine is looking at the information and then telling the radiologist, this is the report, that's never going to go over well. But if AI is telling the radiologist, this is what my interpretation is because of XYZ, I looked at this and they can actually go back and look at the whole audit trail. Now
Mm,
the radiologist is like, okay, I agree with that assessment and I accept it. So it's creating smarter humans. And the reason why this is so important is not just do we have problems? Even if you are one of the best radiologists there are, data shows that after lunch, they make more mistakes
really? Why is that?
because all the blood is going to their digestive system for the food and it goes away from their brain. So there's
So they need
data that
longer
shows,
lunches, though.
yes, you need 2 hour lunches. That's why you take a nap after to recover and then you go back to work. But so things like that we know are human errors and they happen all the time. Anytime a human is involved, it depends on the amount of sleep they got, where they're at in their day, how many hours they've already worked before or after lunch. So how can we actually eliminate most of those factors by doing an AI second read?
Hmm.
That second read also reduces liability for the institution. Can you imagine two people looked at your images? That would make you feel much better.
How precise are the AI scans and reads?
What I'm seeing right now is it's really good at significant lesions and things like that. In mammography, this is a great example. I was talking to a radiologist about this a few weeks ago. And for routine mammography, he's comfortable. He loves the results. But for dense breasts, where it's harder to see through the densities, he said it's a game changer for them.
Huh.
There's nodules they see that they didn't see before AI pointed it out to them. So I would say we're not at the point where all of these AI reading models are speaking the same language, have enough clean data input to truly differentiate every diagnosis. But there's a company I work with, Cerebru, out of Belgium, and they already have a great brain protocol AI where it just runs basic scans to start, looks at the images. If the patient's normal, then it's a complete exam, non contrast exam, saves the insurance companies a ton of money. But if it sees a bleed, a tumor, certain things in the exam, it'll recommend a follow up scan to dive into that exact pathology
Hmm.
and then let the radiologist decide, do I need contrast because now we see something. So we are seeing already people implementing software third party within OEMs to help with this problem.
Okay. So going back to something that you said a few minutes ago, you mentioned AI systems explaining how they reach their conclusions. Why is that transparency so important?
Well, anytime we ask someone to step outside your own comfort zone when you're putting your name on the report, trust is key because it's still the radiologist's name on that report. So at the end of the day when they're looking at the reports, they can't just say, "Well, AI was the one that told me to do it." No, AI is just helping them be smarter. So if there's not transparency, if they don't trust AI, they're going to discard it from the beginning and say, I'm not going to accept this at all.
So there's an accountability piece at play there as well.
Absolutely. And
Gotcha.
that's why I say this is really a second read, is how you look at this, most of it.
Mhm.
It will help build the reports, structure the reports. But also, what's interesting is if you've ever looked at a radiology report in the last, I don't know how many years, have you ever had a chance to actually read a radiologist's dictation of your exam? It's in gobbledygook language that you don't understand. On top of that, your ordering physician may not even truly understand a lot of it. So AI is also being used to help put this in layman's terms for the patient and for the referring physician and clearly pointing out what are your next steps for your patient.
Hmm.
So we're really and what that does is it helps the ordering physician quickly see the report, make a decision in the care pathway and move to the next step. So that's also helping downstream to do that as well, but we all know now facilities give access to your report well before your follow up visit. And you're reading your results and you're like, my goodness, I have a contusion. That sounds like I'm going to die. And it's like, let's Google contusion. This is a bone bruise. It'll be okay. But contusion sounds horrible
Yeah.
in a medical term to us that are maybe not in the medical field, right?
Right. So if we look, say, 5 to 10 years ahead,
Mhm.
how different will imaging departments look compared to today?
So 5 years, let's just do a 5 year.
Mhm.
Statistics show that 75% of all of the healthcare workforce will be millennials. So think about referring physicians, not just the staff that's taking care of patients or
Mhm.
scanning patients, the ordering physicians. And if you think about that deficit loss or knowledge loss, tribal knowledge, institutional knowledge, that when people leave, they take it with them, there's just this overall knowledge drain from the system. So, because of that, and because of in 5 years, 10 years, we're going to hit the next cycle of a lot of replacements. I think we're going to see a lot more equipment that has AI embedded, that has a lot of automation where the on site staff does not have to be a expert to be able to just help the patient in the room get on the table. It also means instead of, let's say, 15 years ago, it was 40 to 50 clicks to do a brain MRI. Now it's one click. So what I see in 5 to 10 years absolutely will be having remote quality control staff that are managing multiple sites because the systems are autonomous. The images can rerun themselves if there's mistakes. We just need a human to leverage medtech, leverage AI to make them smarter and multitask more. And I really don't think we need to have a one-on-one anymore. This is kind of like this, being able to take 10 people in a van instead of a single car. You're just maximizing the staff we do have.
And how do you feel that that will change the patient outcome?
Well, I've been doing this for 30 years. Part of my job was to train people at a point in my career to set up scans, learn them. Have you ever heard of the 10,000 hour rule?
No.
Okay, so the 10,000 hour rule just assumes if you practice something over and over again for
Mm.
10,000 hours, that's your best chance of becoming an expert. So you think about this, if you do MRI for 5 solid years, but you do the exact same thing over and over again, you might become an expert. But most of our day is one patient every half hour, one patient every hour. You're only doing 16 patients a day. How much are you really learning? A lot of it's just repetitive brain, spines, knees, shoulders. But the 10% of advanced exams like liver, breast, prostate, advanced neuro work, you only see that 10% of your day. So instead of a 5 year span to be an expert in basic scanning, now it's a 25-year to be an expert at all these advanced procedures. Does that make, yeah, it seems incredible, but that is where we are.
Mhm.
So I often talk about that tech that can do everything is a unicorn tech. We need to stop trying to hire unicorn techs and look for techs that have the right attitude for patient care, have the work ethic that want to, really do a great job. And I think we can give them the tools to become great techs with AI and med tech.
And that's where Row Club comes in, correct?
Yes, absolutely. We're seeing this everywhere. It's not just CAT scan MRI. We're also working with ultrasound, X ray, fluoroscopy, because it is about having access to your equipment from anywhere in the world, from any simple connection. So you could pull someone in last minute for anything you need, the right person. Let's say, how much does it cost to fly someone in just to help you build a breast protocol for your radiologist? Maybe you don't have the expert. Well, you have to fly them in, you pay a daily rate, so now you're looking at $400 an hour. That just over an 8 hour day, that's just that takes all your profits.
Yeah,
Makes no sense. So
right.
if we could just have someone remote in for 1 hour and maybe pay $100, that makes a lot of sense.
How much does Row Club save hospitals, clinicians, imaging departments, etcetera? How much does it save them in terms of just ROI?
The ROI is when we look at revenue overall. As you lose somebody in a modality, the loss of revenue, so this ebb and flow of revenue coming in is a huge problem for hospitals today. You're not going to replace equipment and buy new things and invest if your revenues are down and up constantly there and you can't count on it. Just losing one tech, $50,000 loss to get another one and get back on your feet. If it
Yeah.
takes 3 months, that's the operational loss of just that. But what about all the patients? So I think what we are finding is we are giving them stability in their revenues. We're giving them the ability to extend and add more procedures at the end of the day or the beginning of the day because we have a more flexible workforce model. And then we can not just stabilize your revenues, but grow them. And I think that's more important because we're not looking to save money. We're looking to ensure we don't lose any money and then start to grow your revenues.
Fantastic. What challenges are you guys facing in the industry right now?
Well, up until last year, I think it was so new. We were still socializing the idea.
Mm,
At that point, you look at other industries, farming industry, it's done remote. Rocket ships are not flown by the people sitting in those seats that you see them strapped in. It's something remote. There's remote surgeries being done. So we're seeing it everywhere that cranes are operated remotely. So we're seeing all these other industries adopt it. So it's natural that this is the next place, healthcare, that we really start to leverage it, especially you'd always want to have the best expert in a health system do your exam. In fact,
mhm,
if I need an MRI exam, I know the exact individual in the exact city that I will fly to get that exam because that's where I know that I will get the best exam. So if we can eliminate those issues and challenges, I think it would be huge for the industry. So what has changed though is Medicare, Medicaid accepting remote contrast coverage for radiologists,
mm,
right? Accepting a remote presence in lieu of on-site. So we started to see that during COVID, and then the ART came out with an imaging assistant credential. First time they've credentialed something below the rad tech. So now there's a formal position for
mm.
remote MRI assistants.
Oh,
So we're seeing
interesting.
the industry adopt standards to prepare for this. RadSite is a great example of an accreditation body
Mhm.
that actually accredits you to do remote scanning so that you feel comfortable, you've crossed all the T's, dotted all the I's, that you have the standard operating procedures in place, because everything in healthcare really does come down to how did we design the process procedures, the workflows to be as efficient and safe as possible, safe for the staff, safe for the patient,
Mhm.
whether we're injecting contrast, we're giving radiation doses, injecting radiation in nuclear medicine, or strong magnetic fields in MRI. This isn't a human individual that ensures this safety happens. It's a process, it's standard operating procedures. So a lot of fears were around, is it going to be safe to do it remote? And I always remind everyone that all of the safety things that have happened in MRI and overdosing radiation and these type of things happened with a licensed technologist on site. So it's not the human or the human that has the credential because magically everything's not safe because I have an RTR behind my name. It's safe because the process ensures safety and has enough checks and balances.
Right.
And I would say, going back to an earlier question, I wanted to point out that a lot of people don't realize that who does your scans matters significantly
Mm,
in
yeah.
the outcome of your images. Now, sometimes CT is pretty automated. It's a lot more intensive for post processing, but you need someone with high skills to post process CT data. And some of it's automated, but there's still a lot of manual things. But running an MRI machine, ultrasound's another great example. The ultrasound, whoever's holding the probe, is the one seeing the anatomy and pathology and doing screen captures. So it is in the best interest of all of our patients to enable them access to the best and have the most support because it's the patients that suffer when the tech maybe isn't well skilled in an area. And I'll say another thing, techs don't want to be put in a position where they didn't do a good job or they didn't know how to complete this exam fully because they just didn't have the training. Remember when I said reimbursements have been dropping significantly?
Mhm.
So what did we do? We pulled extra time and training away from techs because we just didn't have the reimbursements to have those buffers. So where we used to have every tech get formal training, you'd start maybe 2 weeks, 4 weeks, there's a program. Now, day one, you're starting with no training. You just figure it out as you go.
Yeah.
We're too busy. We have a shortage. So we've done this to ourselves where now even the staff we do have, we haven't given them the support, education, or training to help them be the best that they can be.
Hmm. And so how does Row Club help with that, with the training and support remotely?
Because we enable you to log in from any simple computer, any internet computer at ECR in Vienna, Austria. This 2 days ago, this yesterday, and the day before, we streamed a remote scanning session from Vienna, Austria, all the way to USA on a hotspot. So it was just someone's hotspot, right, on a phone, and we streamed it for 10 hours straight and
Wow.
operated the scanner. So that's the power of our platform where you can leverage anyone from any location. You're not locked into a certain computer, a certain location. You could be leveraging someone in another state that has certain expertise you need. I look at a lot of chains that have multiple city locations, state locations, and they can leverage their cardiac tech in
Uh,
one location to support a tech in another location. So you think about today is what happens is we have a tech sitting at this location that can do cardiacs for CT, but the patient lives 100 miles away and has to drive past two locations and they know it to go get their scan. And that loses confidence and trust in the patient's eyes when you're asking patients to drive past the site they normally go to, where they know there's a CAT scan machine, to go get a CAT scan somewhere else.
right.
So being able to log in and everything as if you're sitting there, you can do from your home computer. You can see cameras, you can see the patient on the table, you can see the staff on site. You can have the radiologist log in at the same time with you. You can have a new tech log in simultaneously. You can show them how to set something up, pass the mouse to them and say, okay, now you do it. I'll watch you do it and I'll correct you before we do the scan. So
Hmm.
now you may be a new employee, a new tech. The stress isn't on you to perform if you're not comfortable. There's someone over your shoulder that can take control at any moment and they just coach you through it. Now, once you get good at brains and spines and knees and shoulders, it's only every now and then where something happens and you don't know how to repeat a scan. And then it's, hey, can you help me? But it's these planned ones where we know at 10 o'clock there's a liver, but I haven't done a dynamic liver in a while, right? And I have to capture this in contrast injection. And if I miss it, we're going to have to bring the patient back another day so we can dose them again. So we enable true collaboration. For example, a lot of sites will send a patient away because we didn't know they had an implanted device. And they'll say, well, we don't do those here because we don't have a tech that's comfortable scanning someone with a neurostimulator. So you have to go to over here. That's not good for patients. Not only
No.
do you now you lost that time slot and now you have to take a future time slot, but 10 to 20% of those people won't even go for their next one then. They'll find somewhere else
Yeah.
because they've lost confidence. So imagine now you have an MR safety officer that can just log in and be like, I can walk you through this and it'll be safe.
That's mind blowing, especially looking at it from, a patient perspective. The idea of somebody remotely being able to do this is absolutely mind blowing. How many clients or how many imaging departments do you guys currently work with?
So we are in 15 countries.
Really?
So across 15 countries, we have hundreds and hundreds of locations spread
Wow.
all over, and we're growing. Every month, we add another country because this is a global problem.
Yes.
And having access to your scanner is not just someone remote scanning, it's raising the quality and the access for patients. It is collaboration truly. When we used to be able to have someone come in and be like, hey, I have a question for you. Can you look at this? And sometimes that's all you need to A, learn and get better, but B, make sure that patient got that right exam. So out of the hundreds of locations, I've seen multiple use cases where one of our customers just we're going to just start out and give lunch coverage because no one near us and around us gives lunches to techs. And we're never going to lose a tech because, they didn't get lunch. And the techs are just amazed that I can leave for an hour the same time every day. You mean I can kind of coordinate with a local friend to go out for lunch? No tech can ever walk away at their lunchtime
Yeah.
because it always bleeds over from another patient. But
Yeah.
imagine just being able to say, it's your time to go. Go ahead.
That's amazing. Wow. So it sounds like you have a really aggressive growth strategy. What's your biggest challenge in growing as a company right now?
Well, the biggest challenge is just your standard workflows within
Mm.
facilities just to go through all the steps. And it's really not a challenge, it's just the steps we take. And I enjoy the steps, so it's not painful for me. We typically start to have conversations with individuals that have a need, try to uncover needs and would we be a good fit? If we are, then we give presentations and we start to show them. We'll demo it to them, and then we'll go to their IT department and say, look how cyber secure this is. You don't have to do any work. And IT people love us because we're the only ones that we say, we don't need you to give us a person, build a infrastructure, no servers, no VPNs. Just give us an internet line and whitelist it. And that's all we need from you. So usually IT departments are real quick, be like, we're signing up for that because they're short too, right?
Yep.
So we're not asking that piece. So the IT piece is great. Then we just go through contracts, the business associate agreements with hospitals, just to make sure we're aligning on terms and terms of service and things like that in that process. So that's really all. Our implementation process, typically, once we have the product on site, takes 15 minutes to install. So it doesn't disrupt anyone. It's very plug and play. It's very basics. Those obstacles aren't there. So we don't need this huge installation planning and people to plan. That's very simple. So really, it's helping customers establish new standard operating procedures to prepare
Mhm.
for remote.
Okay.
That's the biggest obstacle, change management.
Yes. And how have you guys been how have you been managing that?
We provide them help, support,
Yep.
because prior to me taking over the president role for Row Club Americas, I had a large team that worked for me that did SOPs, that scanned remotely. They managed installations. They managed this remote solution. And a lot of it we had to write ourselves and figure out ourselves because it had never been done before. But now we are passing that knowledge on to the next group of people and saying, this is how we did it. Here's our documentation. You can look it over and help develop your own as well to fit your facility.
So it's very custom, it's very tailored to that specific facility.
Correct, because it's where's the patient coming from? They start in the waiting room, but then where do you go? Somewhere you have to stop at a bathroom, somewhere you have to stop at a waiting room, somewhere you have to stop at a sub waiting room. So those those patient navigation flows are what you have to take into factors of how do we make sure this patient is safe? The process is safe. We've checked every box along the way that we have done everything properly. We've checked the order, we've checked the patient. Something as simple as do we have the right patient?
Yeah.
Are we scanning the correct part? These are all the same things we do in person. Now we do with the on site staff and remote with timeouts.
If you had a magic wand that you could wave to solve any one issue in the business, what would that be?
Well, that's a great question. I probably need to think about that for a little bit, but I'll do something. I'll try to make it quick. If I had a magic wand, I would say that there would be no variability between image outcomes across scanners across the United States because it's not fair that if you happen to live in a very affluent region, they can afford a brand new 3T. If you're in a
Mm.
small town that doesn't have really good health insurance and large populations in that area, they can't afford the new scanners. So by default, you're not going to get as good of an exam. So if I had a magic wand, I would solve that across the board. I would say, no longer can you have anything older than 10 years. You
Mhm.
have to replace it. I know scanners out there that are 30 years old. We don't
Ow.
even drive. How often do you even see a 30-year-old car? Right? You should have to have an antique plate on the scanner. So that would be my magic.
That's a great answer. I love it. If a hospital administrator is listening to this and wants to future proof their imaging operations, what should they start thinking about right now?
I'd start thinking about people. People are what make healthcare happen. People helping people. And I think we have to get back to how do we treat the staff that we have? How do we listen to them? How do we not treat them like a number and really address the key problem of techs won't leave great employers for money most times,
Mhm.
right? People that feel valued, that trust the administrators that work for them, that know that at the drop of the hat, they're not going to just fire me the day before Christmas because they've changed their plan. And it happens all the time. I hear stories. I've got so many friends in the industry that still scan, and you hear these horror stories like right before Christmas, they get fired and they did
Oh.
nothing wrong. They just said, we don't need you anymore. We don't have the volume at this site anymore. So sorry. Or we're not going to give you a raise this year. And it's like, what did I not do my part of the bargain? So how do we just get back to people, I think, and treating people with mutual respect so you get respect back. And I think that will help secure some of the turnover by giving them a hybrid workflow, giving them the support further tells those people that we care about you. I remember a long time ago when I was doing MRI and you're by yourself, it's second shift, it's 8 o'clock at night, no one's around
Mm.
and the scan just isn't turning out the way you like. There's artifacts, motion, and you start getting these hot sweats and you just feel dread because they put me in this position that now I'm not comfortable. It's going to impact the patient, and I'm here for the patients. And it made me feel horrible.
Hmm.
So if we continue to make our staff feel horrible, the patients start to feel that feeling too. And the patients say, something's wrong. This person doesn't enjoy their job, or, there's something wrong here, and patients feel it. So if we get back to people, I think, and why we're doing this, I think that would help significantly.
Where can people follow you or get in touch?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, rowclub.com. Pretty much, I'm always visible. I'm always available. I would say joshua.seiler@rowclub.com is a great email. Just directly email me and say, let's talk, or tell me more about this. I'm interested. I think there's a lot of people in this industry are trying to solve the problem of staffing.
Mm.
But what I see is that it's a multifaceted challenge. And unless you bring in something that truly is a game changer and brings in not only the ability to take care of patients, but your people that are scanning the patients, that's really the power. So, my goal always when I talk to people is, what are you challenged with? How could Row Club help? How could we really bridge this and build a hybrid workforce with you? And it shouldn't break your bank, right? This should not be, we have to take out a big loan to do this. And that's another thing we work on is, how do we do this so we can scale it? How
Mm.
do we do it so you're not saying, I've got to go to the board and ask for a significant amount of money? It just shouldn't be that.
Right. Agreed. Any last piece of advice or message you want to leave listeners with?
I think hospitals need to realize that we're not getting the true value out of AI because it is so siloed within all of these hundreds of AI companies. So hospitals need to really start to drive standardized language, standardized output, so AI can do something with the data.
Yep.
And I think if we don't do that, we'll just have all of these little AI engines running around, and we'll never get the full value out of it for the end to end care piece. For example, you may have software that is great for Alzheimer's, but what if we don't know the patient really is on that path of Alzheimer's? How does the tech know, okay, we need to send this report out for quantification to see if there's any kind of reduction in brain size? We don't always know what's happening with a patient. The data is 78% of all Americans have one or more chronic disease, and we're seeing more and more complexities. AI has to help us with all these complexities where the ordering physician really didn't even suspect some things. I don't know
Okay.
if that was a great closing statement, but it's more of just, they're all hesitant to invest in the latest AI because of that reason. And understanding that problem of adopting or pushing for this adoption of standardized language in these AI models is really the only way that they'll ever be able to do an enterprise-wide AI solution.
Gotcha. Fantastic. Thanks for tuning into today's episode. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. You can find Joshua at rowclub.com. Catch you on the next episode.